Cynthia knew something was off the second Trent said synergistic overhaul. That was his go-to phrase when he had no idea what the engineers had actually built. She just pulled a 28-hour stint debugging a database lock that could have fried every user's metadata. And now, she was watching this gel-haired, TED Talk cosplayer parade in front of the entire company like he invented encryption, droned on about agility and forward momentum, while Cynthia nursed lukewarm coffee from a ceramic mug that said, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." She was muted, camera off, running silent diagnostics in another window when it happened. A flicker, an edge in his tone. Trent leaned toward his mic, smirked at someone just off camera, COO probably, and muttered, "Fire her after this call." Cynthia blinked. Her hand froze mid-keystroke. The coffee stopped at her lips. She looked at the corner of the screen. His mic, unmuted, hers, unmuted. 3 Slack messages popped up like tripwires. Did he just? You heard that, right? WTF. One engineer even sent a screen grab, Trent's icon glowing green with betrayal. And right about here, hey, quick sidebar, if you're one of the 95% of folks who listen to these stories but haven't subscribed yet, do me a solid and hit that button. I'm trying to get to my first 10,000 followers. And unlike Trent, I won't whisper about firing you behind your back. All right, back to the rage. Cynthia didn't move, not even a blink. Her whole body was stone, but inside, a wildfire sparked behind her ribs. Fire her. After the system rollback she just saved with bubblegum code and caffeine. After she stayed up 3 nights last week while Trent was busy tweeting about executive vision. Nah, not today. He didn't scream, didn't unmute, didn't blow up the call like some viral HR showdown. She just minimized the Zoom window and opened her personal email. Drafted a single line. Subject, you've made your decision, so have we. Signed it. Attached the names of the 3 engineers, Marcus, Neha, and Lyle. All of whom had quietly confirmed what she already knew. This company didn't run on vision. It ran on duct tape. And she was the duct. 10 minutes passed. Trent was still talking about partnerships and venture scaling. Still unmuted. Still blissfully ignorant. At exactly 11:42 a.m., her email hit every executive inbox like a sniper round. No flourish, no goodbye video montage, just digital guillotine. Then she clicked leave meeting. Not a word, not a tear, just silence. And as she closed her laptop, the Slack pings started lighting up like a Christmas meth lab. The system wasn't on fire yet, but the spark had been struck. And Cynthia was done waiting to burn with it. While Trent yammered about cross-functional scalability like a man trying to win a TED talk he wasn't invited to, Cynthia was slicing clean through the heart of her digital footprint. Every keystroke felt like carving initials into granite. Her resignation wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was clinical, precise. To the executive team, effective immediately. I resign from my role as senior systems architect. You've made your decision, so have we. Best, Cynthia marks she copied Marcus, Neha, and Lyle. Sent it from her personal account, not the company one. The others had their emails prepped too. They just needed her signal. A single emoji in Slack, the scissors. Scissors they hit send together. It was 11:42 a.m. Trent was still mid-sentence about revolutionizing onboarding when 4 resignation emails detonated in the inboxes of every VP, director, and slack-jawed digital evangelist they'd hired in the last year. No drama, no explanation. Just a subject line that sliced deeper than any rant ever could. You've made your decision, so have we. Cynthia left the Zoom call like she was slipping out the back door of a burning church. No wave, no camera on, just gone. She opened her access portal. Her main system account, linked to Jenkins, deployment logs, and Slack channels, was deleted clean. 1 click, done, but she left 2 others untouched. An old shell access key, buried beneath an admin layer nobody but her ever used, and 1 credentialed DevOps account tied to the third-party integration dashboard. Not obvious, not dangerous, not active unless someone knew what to do with it. She wasn't sabotaging anything. It wasn't petty. She was surgical. There was no malicious code, no booby-trapped logout, no melodramatic I quit channel message in Slack, just a quiet exodus. Lyle texted her, it's spreading. Ops just asked me where the Jenkins queue logs are. Told him to ask Trent. Marcus followed. Sales just pinged me about the staging API. They don't know how to update it without you. Cynthia turned off her phone. She wasn't interested in watching the house collapse. She'd already removed her furniture, turned off the gas, and left the front door unlocked for karma. Inside, they were still talking like nothing happened. Still running meetings, still assigning tasks, but something invisible had shifted. The company still had its office space, its dashboards, its canned mission statement printed on artisan recycled paper. But the bones were walking out the door. And Cynthia, calm, focused, unblinking, wasn't coming back. It started slow, like a nosebleed on a white shirt. First ping hit the #eng leads channel. Hey, does anyone know where Cynthia's access went? 30 seconds later, #devsprint92 lit up. Repos missing permissions. Can't push builds. Then the flood came. Slack lit up like Times Square on a bad acid trip. Project managers were tagging ghost accounts. Engineers were tagging each other in all caps. Interns, poor caffeine-twitching interns, trying to calm product owners with phrases like "we're triaging the transition." Nobody knew who was in charge of the current deployment. Nobody knew how to reroute the staging environment. Nobody knew why the core GitHub integrations were throwing 403 errors. Cynthia's name? Erased from the system logs, but her fingerprints were all over everything. Automated commit messages with her old initials, cron jobs with embedded logic only she could have written, scripts that just worked, even when no one understood why. Marcus was gone. Neha, too. Lyle had vanished mid-thread after replying "lol good luck" in a PM with the head of sales. By noon, one of the directors had tried to calm the panic with a company-wide Slack post. "We appreciate everyone's flexibility during this transition. We'll be redistributing responsibilities shortly." Flexed biceps, it got 7 clown emojis and a middle finger. At 12:14 p.m., Cynthia received a private message. "Rachel J., Senior Legal Counsel, I had a feeling this was coming. For what it's worth, I read your old contract. If you ever need anything, backup, receipts, legal teeth, my inbox is open." Cynthia stared at the message for a full minute. Rachel had been polite in meetings, quiet in calls. But she was one of the last originals, someone who'd been there when the startup was still a group chat and a half-baked API. Cynthia replied with a single sentence. "Keep an eye on clause 14.3, IP ownership. No emojis, no signature, just the breadcrumb." Back in Slack, chaos bloomed. Marketing demanded status updates from engineering, only to learn half the front-end team didn't even have permissions anymore. Product leads realized they didn't know how to demo the newest feature. The sandbox environment had gone dark, and Cynthia had been the only one maintaining the secret YAML config that made the damn thing function. By 1:00 p.m., HR tried to spin it. They posted a farewell message to Cynthia in the #general channel, wishing Cynthia all the best in her next chapter. It was met with silence. Not a heart, not a smiley. Just a blinking thread and a rising body count of panicked DM chains. Because here's the thing, Cynthia hadn't left a mess. She left just enough. Enough for the system to look functional. Enough for people to believe it might hold. Enough rope for Trent's empire to hang itself. And like a woman watching a storm gather from behind glass, Cynthia felt still. Not smug, not furious. Just done. Done holding it together so others could pretend they were competent. Done being a safety net for men who didn't know the floor was gone. As Slack melted into a digital scream chamber, she shut her laptop. Let them wonder, let them sweat. The real outages hadn't even begun yet. The first ticket hit the help desk queue at 6:03 a.m. the next morning. Subject: client can't access reporting dashboard 504 gateway timeout. By 6:07, 3 more had stacked beneath it. East Coast clients first. Then 2 from Singapore. One very angry Fortune 100 finance firm, whose quarterly review hinged on a live API feed that was now coughing up null values, and raw XML like it was 2004 again. The integration key. That integration key. A fragile little string of characters tucked away in a config file no one had dared touch for 2 years, because Cynthia's team had kept it alive with duct tape, coffee, and spiritual bargaining. It wasn't auto-renewing. It had never been auto-renewing. Because Cynthia told them 2 years ago that auto-renew would trigger a compliance sweep, and if they weren't ready, the entire infrastructure could get flagged by the third-party vendor's audit system. Everyone agreed, don't touch it. Don't breathe near it. Just let her team handle it manually. Now, that team was gone, and the key was about to expire in 30 hours. Trent woke up late, thinking about a podcast interview, and resetting his leadership kai, only to find his inbox flooded with messages that read like smoke alarms. Outage in data bridge. Clients are pissed. We can't update the key without a compliance login we don't have. Legal says we need to submit a request before regenerating, or we're violating Clause 7.2 of the Data Use Agreement. Trent did what Trent always did. He screamed into Slack like it was a megaphone. DevOps, why is this still down? There was no reply, because DevOps was Marcus, and Marcus was gone. Neha had handled the API documentation and had half the system passwords memorized. Lyle managed the integration sandbox and vendor keys. All gone. The new head of engineering, some freshly imported hire with a resume that read like a Medium article, tried to step in. He called an emergency meeting titled Restoring System Stability. Action plan, panic and prayer. They tried to regenerate the key manually. The vendor dashboard flagged the request. A red banner appeared, unrecognized user access attempt compliance team notified. That triggered an email to the vendor's legal department. That triggered a 72-hour hold. And just like that, Daily Tech was deadlocked out of its own critical platform, with clients unable to process reports, download files, or even log in. Sales was on fire, support was in shambles, and Trent was pacing his glass-walled office on a Zoom call with 4 VPs and a VC board member asking, "Why didn't we plan for this?" The silence that followed could have curdled milk. Cynthia, meanwhile, was eating a peach on her balcony. She'd already gotten a text from Lyle that morning, APIs down. Timer started. Let's see how long before Trent blames us from the afterlife. She didn't reply. Not because she was angry, not because she wanted to rub salt in the wounds, because she didn't need to. This wasn't sabotage. This was entropy. Systems rot when caretakers walk away. And Cynthia had simply stopped caring. Let Trent rage. Let them panic. The first domino was falling, and gravity didn't take sides. Cynthia was reorganizing a folder on her desktop, something satisfying about dragging digital clutter into neat little piles, when the LinkedIn ping came through. "Hey Cynthia, Riley Chen from TechLine. Been hearing noise about some sudden exits at Daily Tech. You open to chat?" She stared at it, cursor blinking like it had a conscience. Riley wasn't sloppy. He'd been the first to expose the crypto firm pump and dump last year. Quiet, strategic, teeth behind a smile, but Cynthia didn't take interviews. She didn't do damage control. She just opened a Proton Mail tab, drafted a burner message, attached 4 internal screenshots, a Zoom calendar entry showing the date of Trent's whisper, a Slack message with the resignations timestamped during the call, a screenshot of the vendor dashboard warning, unauthorized renewal attempt flagged for audit, and one line from the compliance clause, only credentialed security architects may modify or transfer keys tied to client encryption packages. No names, no commentary, just breadcrumbs. She hit send. Closed the tab. Back to her folders. That afternoon, TechCrunch dropped the headline like a brick through a cathedral window. 4 resignations shake core of Daily Tech. Engineering exodus exposes API outages. The article didn't name her, but it didn't need to. Anyone in the Valley who'd ever worked in back-end architecture knew what kind of brain it took to keep Daily Tech running. They'd assumed she was underpaid, overused, invisible by design. Now they knew she was gone. Article quoted a source close to the team who described the resignation emails as surgical. It cited outages affecting major financial clients. It referenced internal panic and unrenewable access credentials. Riley ended the piece with a dagger. Requests for comment from Daily Tech's executive team were met with silence. Cynthia read the piece once, didn't share it, didn't screenshot it. She just sipped her coffee and opened up her personal Git server. Version 1.4 of her new platform was quietly humming to life. The article missed one thing. The big thing. Daily Tech didn't own its core encryption framework. Because 3 years ago, Trent declined to renegotiate her IP clause. Thought it was just paperwork. And buried in that paperwork was a contract that said, security layer designs, scripts, token orchestration logic remain the sole property of the creator, unless explicitly transferred in writing. There was no such writing, and Riley, for all his digging, hadn't found the patent filing yet. But he would. And when he did, the next article wouldn't just mention resignations. It would mention ownership. And Cynthia, still quiet, still unseen, was already 3 moves ahead. COO's voice cracked like a teenager's during the emergency Zoom. We believe Cynthia deliberately deleted a critical architecture folder. We're treating this as internal sabotage. The legal team's silence could have filled a stadium. The folder in question, labeled Vault Auth Failsafes, had vanished from the company's internal cloud overnight. Recycle bin, empty. backups, corrupted. The panic was instant. That folder held the core fallback protocols for daily text login systems. No one had touched it in months, because no one could without triggering two-factor, elevated access, and a manual encryption handshake Cynthia had written herself. She hadn't deleted it. She'd simply moved it out of reach, because the folder wasn't company property. It was hers. 3 years back, when Daily Tech was still running off borrowed money and monster energy, Cynthia had drafted her own employment agreement, one the founders barely read. In it, she inserted Clause 14.3. All scripts, schemas, and logic modules developed by the employee prior to or outside the scope of explicitly assigned company deliverables shall remain the intellectual property of said employee, unless separately transferred in writing. That folder was written during the pre-launch sprint on her personal rig, using her own auth model, something she had built as a proof of concept before Daily Tech had a single paying client. She'd offered to license it back then. Trent called it bureaucratic overhead, so she kept it. Now the company's backbone was gone. The audit team, 2 compliance lawyers, and a third-party vendor from the security firm confirmed the timestamped creation logs matched her original repo. Her Git commit history showed entries 2 weeks before her formal employment began. License was never signed. The transfer was never negotiated. The COO stammered on the call, but it was on our drive. The lawyer's response was a dry coughin. Possession isn't ownership. Across the city, Cynthia was making cinnamon toast and watching old noir films. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel in legal. They're folding. Clause 14.3 saved your ass and lit theirs on fire. Nice work. She didn't smile. Not quite. But her shoulders eased. The bitterness behind her ribs cracked just enough to let in something like satisfaction. Trent, meanwhile, was pacing his glass palace of a corner office, slowly realizing he hadn't just fired a senior engineer. He'd fired the system. And not with a bang, with a whisper, the wrong whisper, to the wrong person. And now, every system was stitched together with silence and unraveling by the hour. He wanted revenge. Legal wanted damage control. But Cynthia had already won. Without saying a word, the system still breathed, but it wheezed. Slack channels had gone quiet, not out of peace, but paralysis. The engineers left behind were duct-taping Jenkins queues and praying to whatever gods govern expired SSL certs. Alerts had turned from polite nudges into digital sirens. Warning, token auth expiring in 2 days. Critical, certificate for payment gateway expires in 19 hours. Alert, vendor contract with data proxy unresolved, renewal failed. And beneath it all, the spine of Daily Tech, Cynthia's code, her logic trees, her redundant fail-safes, groaned like a haunted house losing its beams one by one. She hadn't booby-trapped anything. There were no time bombs or malicious flags. But systems don't just run, they are kept alive. She'd done that, quietly, daily, while execs postured on LinkedIn and gave interviews about culture. She was the janitor of entropy, the keeper of keys. And now the doors were sticking, the lights were flickering, and no one remembered where the damn circuit breakers were. At 3:12 p.m., her inbox lit up with a name she hadn't seen in months. Elias Coates, interim CTO, Daily Tech subject. Request for consulting engagement, Cynthia. We understand recent transitions have disrupted key systems. Do you consider returning in a limited consulting capacity to help us stabilize critical infrastructure? Short term. Competitive rate, fully remote, let us know. No greeting, no apology, just desperation in business casual font. She read it twice, then forwarded it, not to her lawyer, not to her former team, to Priya, an exec at Ion Layer, one of Daily Tech's quieter but more lethal competitors. She attached the email, added one line, might be a good time to accelerate your timeline, and closed the tab. She didn't gloat. She didn't text Lyle or Neha with a snarky screenshot. Instead, she went back to her code. Her new system. It was already in beta, already leaner, already free of the legacy cruft Trent loved to brag about but never understood. And this time, it wouldn't be propped up by caffeine and uncredited labor. This time, it had her name on every commit. No more borrowed vision. No more ghostwriting other people's leadership. Just architecture built from ground zero, designed to outlast trend-chasing CEOs and glass-wall empires. Daily Tech was limping, running on fumes and Slack DMs with increasingly panicked emojis. But Cynthia, she was building something alive, not to get revenge, to replace the thing they thought could survive without her. And when it launched, there wouldn't be a whisper. there'd be proof. Email came with the subject line, "Patent Inquiry Follow-Up from Summit Intro." The sender, Evelyn Rhodes, senior partner at Quarry Road Capital, a name Cynthia recognized from tech panels and acquisition whispers. The kind of VC who didn't just throw money, she built empires by finding the people everyone underestimated. "Hi, Cynthia. We're evaluating several infrastructure platforms for investment. Your name keeps surfacing, particularly around a security framework patent we're modeling against. Would you be open to coffee? No pressure, just a conversation." Evelyn Cynthia read it twice, then once more slowly. They'd found the filings. She'd registered the patents quietly, methodically, using her lawyer Rachel and a ghost LLC. The design covered token orchestration, dynamic key rotation, and embedded fallbacks for decentralized auth environments, kind of tech that didn't just power companies, it future-proofed them. Daily Tech had built their house on her blueprint, but Cynthia owned the foundation. Now the blueprints were starting to glow. She met Evelyn 2 days later at a quiet cafe tucked between a dog groomer and a wine bar. She wore jeans and a windbreaker. Evelyn wore confidence like tailored linen. The handshake was brief. The eye contact wasn't. 10 minutes into small talk, Evelyn cut to it. "We've seen 5 companies claim they're building something like this, but your name keeps coming up on every patent cross-check. So let me ask you straight, are you sitting on the next infrastructure platform?" Cynthia reached into her bag, pulled out a manila folder, slid it across the table like a card sharp revealing a royal flush. Inside, a full feature map, user flow charts, beta deployment stats from a test cohort of 11 clients. Chart labeled "What broke at Daily Tech vs. What doesn't break here." Evelyn didn't blink. She just exhaled. "You're not pitching a rebuild." Cynthia shook her head. "I'm pitching a replacement." For a moment, the cafe faded around them. Evelyn tapped the corner of the folder. "What do you need?" "Autonomy, smart money, and a firewall between me and egos in blazers." They both smiled. Later, walking home, Cynthia felt it, not adrenaline, not vengeance, something cleaner. Momentum. She wasn't circling back, wasn't renegotiating with ghosts. She was drawing new borders, not to isolate herself, but to stake claim, not just in code, in ownership. And as the sun dropped behind the skyline, Cynthia didn't look over her shoulder once, because the bridge wasn't burning behind her. She'd already built the boat. The boardroom was too cold, too quiet, and way too full for Monday. Trent adjusted his collar and tried not to sweat through his $1,000 shirt. He stood at the head of the table, hands gripping a clicker that no longer advanced slides because the board had overridden his deck. Instead, they were staring at a screen lit with someone else's logo. Iron frame, clean font, cobalt background, tagline underneath, "Infrastructure that endures." A female voice narrated over a short video clip. Polished. Crisp. Our platform provides seamless deployment environments, token-level granularity, and real-time compliance adaptation, without ever locking clients into a legacy chokehold. All built on patented architecture designed by, the video cut to a headshot. Simple, confident, no smile, just eyes that saw through the bull. Cynthia Marks, founder and chief architect, her name, her face, her system, on every single slide, a few gasps. One choked laugh. One stunned VP muttered, "Jesus Christ." The head of investor relations leaned in and asked what everyone else was thinking. "Is this the same Cynthia you fired?" Trent didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the bullet point beneath her name, U.S. Patent hash 10,893,276 dynamic token auth and failover system. The very skeleton of Daily Tech's infrastructure. Only now improved, faster, modular, cheaper. Fully, because she'd filed it herself years ago, and the company hadn't just failed to buy it, they'd fired the only person who could license it. "Wait," Trent started, voice cracking, but the head of compliance cut him off. "We have no legal claim. It was never transferred." Clause 14.3 was airtight. Silence again. Then someone near the window whispered, not loud, but loud enough. "You whispered too loud, Trent." No one laughed, because this wasn't a joke. This was over. Ironframe had launched with 3 high-profile clients already on board, including one of Daily Tech's most profitable contracts, signed, sealed, and now walking straight out the door. One of the investors finally pushed her chair back and stood. "This board will be reviewing leadership continuity," which was board speak for "get your shit, your NDA, and your exit paperwork." Trent's mouth opened, but no words came out. Cynthia never showed up, never gave a quote, never issued a takedown. She didn't need to. The silence was her microphone. The patent was her punctuation. By the time the boardroom emptied, Trent was left alone, staring at the screen, her face still there, her name still glowing, and no button he could press would make it go away. Subject, no subject from Trent Daily T Daily at daylight.com to Cynthia Marks private sent. Friday, 6:11 a.m. You made your point. Hope it was worth it. That was it. No sign-off, no apology, not even a pathetic ask to reconsider. Just that tight-lipped bitterness from a man used to winning by default. Cynthia didn't open it twice, didn't screenshot it, didn't forward it to anyone with a caption like lol. She just deleted it and opened LinkedIn. New banner, a simple, clean render of a circuit loop turning into a Möbius strip. New headline, building systems that endure. Even when voices don't. No brag, no capital letter acronyms, just truth. The same afternoon, she stood in front of a dry erase board inside a sunlit co-working space in Santa Clara. Glass walls, open rafters, quiet hum of people who actually built things. Cynthia held a red marker, dotted a circle, labeled it trust layer. 3 engineers flanked her, people she had chosen, not inherited. One was from her daily tech crew. One came from a health data startup. The third, just a brilliant junior she'd mentored online. No hierarchy, no hustle theater, no founder wearing Patagonia vests and spitting out phrases like blitzscale. Just a team, a clean slate, and a system that wouldn't rely on secrets, saviors, or last-minute duct tape. They'd been working for hours when one of the engineers looked up from his laptop and said, "It's weird. Every time we build something here, I don't feel like I'm fixing a fire. I feel like I'm part of the architecture." Cynthia didn't respond right away, just nodded and underlined a phrase in the top right corner of the board. Silence is a structure, because it was. It wasn't emptiness. It was what remained when the noise collapsed, when the egos fell, when the system built itself around something stronger than fear. She didn't need revenge. She had blueprint. She had time. She had names on every line of code, not because she needed credit, but because now no one could take it from her. The world didn't end when she logged off. It just started echoing with the sound of a woman who had nothing to prove and everything to build. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.